This meeting is being live
Okay,
streamed.
got it.
Yay. Okay. Oh, and I have to shut off the YouTube so that I don't get a bouncing back effect.
So it's actually live on YouTube, huh?
This meeting is okay. Yes, going live on YouTube. Jai Nyasi Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your sannyas guru, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and Srila Shridhar Maharaj as well. I'm so grateful to be in your sadhu sangha.
Jai
And
Srila Prabhupada, ki jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. And so yeah, we've got a lot of ground to cover today. I'm
It's
just trying
Srila
to.
Prabhupada's grace that we knew Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj. They were both really close to Srila Prabhupada. And I feel like Prabhupada continued teaching me through them.
Yes,
It's like a,
when many of us became orphans, so to speak, spiritual orphans, when Srila Prabhupada departed, you had the anugatya, you had the shelter of those who were very dear to Srila Prabhupada. Not that our godbrothers are also not dear to Srila Prabhupada, but I'm speaking about, very, very mature, very deep association.
yes. And of course, Srila Prabhupada said Srila Sridhar Maharaj was his Shiksha Guru and Srila Govinda Maharaj his dearmost son. So that was, the superlative, dear most. So he just lived with him close. He was the son that Prabhupada always wanted.
Ah,
A son who is fully dedicated, surrendering to his guru.
hmm,
And, yeah.
wonderful to hear. Sweetness. Who would not want to be a part of Prabhupada's family and know those that he loves so much and want to know them more intimately?
Yes. And so do we want to uh, answer the question of what was his name? Bhakta what?
Well, if you like, I can. There's four videos with various comments on them. I can go to video number one, and I can read those comments, and you can address them because they're
Okay.
similar. And then number two and number three. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool. All right. Let me just go back here. Um, interview with Nyasi Maharaj. Okay, so from part one, Abhimanyu Prabhu, who's a friend of mine, who left Vermont several years ago to serve Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj by maintaining his temple at Radhakund, and now he's a teacher in Indonesia.
Oh,
He
wow.
he wrote, "Always wonderful to hear the devotees' pastimes and the early development of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON." And then Butcho 108B said, Maharaj is a living encyclopedia of the history of two important ISKCON temples, Detroit and Chicago. Please preserve for future Vaishnavas. And then someone with the
Who
name,
said that?
someone named Butcho. Uh,
Okay.
shall I ask him who he is?
I probably know him.
Okay.
Sounds like it.
Who are you? Um, and then the next comment is Viraha 108. This is excellent. Was wondering how the Cleveland Temple started. And then Dennis Mainieri said, "Great, love it." Now comes Vijay Murti Das's uh, comment,
Vijay
which is
Murthy. Okay.
more challenging. And if you want, I'll read you my reply to him, and
Okay.
you can give me your critique of what I said.
This is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada?
I don't think so. Vijay
Okay.
Murti Das. He says, "I'm glad you want to preserve Srila Prabhupada's story by telling about him, but then why did you abandon him by leaving? Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada was very clear in his instructions that he gave us and gave them to us without insinuating offense against his godbrothers. Surely we were very immature as we were when we were little, and our father taught and instructed us. And if unfortunately our father died and our mother remarried, that man should not replace our father or his teachings, but he could become a good representative, a good teacher, but not the original father. So my response was, I will share your statement with Maharaj to respond to you today when I record part 5 with him. Devotees have a lot of misunderstandings. If you listen to all 5 parts, you will see how fortunate Maharaj is to have taken that association rather than become bewildered and disturbed by so many clot-shot swamis as we see them today, damaging themselves with the poisons of the shot and giving harmful instructions to their disciples because they fail to continue to receive advanced association. We, and I mean living association. I don't mean just only in the books, but
Mhm.
someone who could. We should always be anugatya, under the protection of advanced Vaishnavas. Their mercy is so valuable for one who understands the value. Srila Prabhupada later gave permission to take the association of Srila Sridhar Maharaj for him to become the president of ISKCON, for our Siddhanta to complete the Bhagavatam, and to build the temple of Vedic planetarium, etc. But all we did was commit aparad against him in ISKCON, calling him a demon, falling down from that offense, etc. We never took advantage of his wonderful association for the roughly 5 years longer that he lived with us after our Srila Prabhupada departed. What a
It's
bunch
10
of...
years.
How many? 10 years?
He lived till 88.
Wow!
He was like 94, 95.
Wow. And then I said, what a bunch of fools we were and still are. And then someone named Rahul Chand says, thanks, Gora Prabhuji. Would you like to hear any others, or did you just want to
I
respond
can
to...
I can reply to that a little bit.
Sure.
Like you said, there was a clear instruction, and those of us that were there know that when Prabhupada departed, shortly after that, Satsarup Maharaj traveled to all the temples in North America and reassured us that it's okay. We have the guidance of a great Vaishnava who will help us, direct our society. And that was Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So Satsarup Maharaj himself gave us that information, telling us that Srila Prabhupada said we should consult with him regarding questions about our philosophy. That was directly from Prabhupada.
Interesting.
And where was I going to go with this?
Did you hear that instruction and become inspired by that?
Of course. Well, at first I was not. At first I was of the mind, I'm just going to be loyal and faithful to Srila Prabhupada. But eventually, by talking to some of my godbrothers who were, had found Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I understood.
Yes.
To serve Srila Prabhupada, I need to develop my Krishna consciousness. I am in a condition where, ideally, I should be able to have full connection with my guru, but by my full surrender. But I'm not surrendered. I need help. So Prabhupada gave us his instruction. The door was open. And anybody who wants to look at the history will find that for the first 3 years, the GBC was consulting regularly with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So why was that? It was because there was an instruction there. And later things became broken, unfortunately. And all these rumors and other things developed, kind of lumping Srila Sridhar Maharaj in with Prabhupada's other godbrothers. And it's just not true. If someone wants to look into it, there's so much evidence about Prabhupada's close, loving relationship with both Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj. It can be found in that Guardian of Devotion. If he wants to look at it, he can see it and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and it's interesting because even you yourself had some of those typical doubts that many...
It took me until like 5 years, until 82. I was thinking, to be loyal to Prabhupada means just Prabhupada, the only guru. But later I understood that isn't Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. That's actually a concoction. My conclusion was it comes from our Western cultural conditioning. The idea that there's one savior. That's from the Christian culture. So I think that was transposed onto Krishna consciousness to a large extent, thinking only Prabhupada. And another point being that if you saw the book Sri Guru and His Grace, it talks about the multiplicity of Guru and Sakshat Haritva Nasamasta Shastri Ruksha Sarhava Vyata Eva Sadvi Kintu Prabhu Ya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanavinda. That the Guru is Krishna. So the Guru comes in so many different forms and so many different manifestations. But and Srila Goswami Maharaj put that together. Sudhir, Dear Krishna, put that book together. But later, Srila Govinda Maharaj said, yes, this is true. But in order to understand that, first you must fully surrender to one Guru. So it was definitely there. So the principle of surrendering to one Guru and only reading Prabhupada's books and only accepting Prabhupada, I accept that. But there was a clear instruction that we could go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and there was a clear necessity for our service to Srila Prabhupada to do that. That was the only motivation, was to fulfill the desire of Srila Prabhupada. And as far as remaining within ISKCON, my feeling was there's two ISKCONs. One of them is the inner ISKCON that has to do with Prabhupada's heart, who Prabhupada is. He said, ISKCON is my heart. What does that mean? You can think that the buildings and the structure is Prabhupada's heart, but no. The heart of Srila Prabhupada is surrender and service to his Guru Maharaj and spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. That's Prabhupada's heart. That's ISKCON. But then also, he also indicated the press, the buildings, so many things are important. But the primary importance is the inner spirit. And how do we retain that inner spirit? How do we grow that inner spirit? Except, we can take help of great Vaishnavas, and that will increase our service to Srila Prabhupada. But simultaneously, like I said before, I don't hold others to this. If people were engaged in direct service in ISKCON with responsible service, no one should have left their service. I respect that and honor that. But those who are in a position where we were open and able to take shelter, that was the door was opened by Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. You made an interesting point that Super Soul is helping me to reflect on right now, and that is, you mentioned about how our tradition is a multiplicity of gurus, and that's not to minimize or relativize Srila Prabhupada's exalted position just because we honor a multiplicity of gurus in our Gaudiya Vaishnav lineage.
Exactly. I mean, don't we pray to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Don't we accept, by reading his books, don't we accept Bhaktivinoda Thakur as Shiksha Guru? Of course we do. What to speak of Saraswati Thakur? He was Prabhupada's life. How can we neglect that? We can't. We have to accommodate all these things, and within our heart, to know that the heart, the spiritual heart, has capacity for embracing, all the Vaishnavas. According to both the direction of Srila Prabhupada and our own internal confirmation. But in my opinion, I'm very conservative in that way. Also, I feel that we should have gotten instruction from Prabhupada directly to be able to go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and we did. So I don't necessarily understand my God brothers and God sisters who've gone elsewhere, to be honest. That may be a little heavy, but in many ways I also honor them all, because everybody carries that sincerity of service to Srila Prabhupada. But we make mistakes. What can be said? I know I didn't make a mistake with this.
Right. I could address that right now, but I know it'll take our discussion in a whole other tangent, and maybe we could address that at a later time. But
maybe part 6 or 7, huh?
Yeah, right. But one thought that came to me is, I remember back in the 1980s when I was serving at our Toronto temple, Balaram Prabhu, a disciple of Gopal Krishna Maharaj, who was doing all this amazing renovation in a more than century old temple
That was
church.
a church, that Prabhupada saw, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
I was
Una.
there when Prabhupada came and saw that place.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I remember him saying to me, Gaura Prabhu, I'm Gopal Krishna Maharaj's disciple, but I really love Rameshwar Swami's lectures on Sankirtan. He's so inspiring to me. But when I asked Gopal Krishna Maharaj if I could listen to Srila Rameshwar Swami, he said, "No, you should only listen to my tapes. You should not listen to anybody else's." And I said, "Didn't he tell you to listen to Prabhupada's tapes?" He said, "No, I should only listen to his." I said, "Well, if you're asking my opinion, you should listen to at least two Prabhupada tapes for every Gopal Krishna Maharaj tape." But I was also thinking, gee, that's really strange how gurus in ISKCON like don't go to this god brother, don't hear from that god brother, only hear from me. So that kind of defeats the concept of a multiplicity of gurus. Yet at the same time, those gurus will say, don't go outside of ISKCON to hear from anybody in the Gaudiya Math. Only hear from me, and even sometimes even saying hear from me more than even hearing from Prabhupada. And like that doesn't make sense either, does it?
Right. I mean, it's a difficult thing. It's very subtle because the guru and disciple, that relationship is heart to heart, and there is some merit in the idea of focusing solely on your Diksha guru,
Uh,
but at the same time, to be able to accommodate the instruction and the help of others is important. And what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, it's as though Srila Prabhupada would have told us not to consider Saraswati Thakur, which he didn't at all.
hmm
He so many places cited that Saraswati Thakur is his everything, and gave us Brahma Samhita that was done by Saraswati Thakur and other things.
Right.
What was his lecture that we printed in Back to Godhead? I forget. The materialistic demonar cannot possibly stretch to the transcendental autocrat, and so on. I guess it was Brahma Samhita, was
Yes, that's right.
it? Introduction to Brahma Samhita.
hmm
Yeah. So what can be said?
Yeah, there's a lot of incongruity. I heard, I've never read the quote, but that Srila Jiva Goswami has stated that of all the tattvas, Guru Tattva is the most difficult one to understand.
Mm,
And one godbrother of mine, friend Ramanath Sukha Prabhu, our godbrother, said, and even more mysterious than Guru Tattva is GBC Tattva, even more difficult. Anyway, all glories to the GBC. They're doing a very difficult job. I have a hard time taking it up. There's some that I feel very close to there, and there's some that I have a hard time relating
Oh,
to.
I remember the devotee that joined in Chicago that became a GBC.
Oh,
That's Tamohar.
oh, okay.
He was just a brand new devotee, got initiated. He was just really humble and sweet and sincere. That's all I
Uh-huh.
remember about him. And I saw his name was GBC. I thought, that's odd. He doesn't seem like a big type. So maybe they're accommodating, more simple type people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the shelter that I take in my heart and my head, that you know everybody's trying as best they can. We have to give honor to that, to the fact that everyone's making a proper attempt, but
Mhm.
simultaneously, for our own sake, we have to make some exercise discretion. Make some based on our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So those two things should be there. Avoid offense, but at the same time, personally, properly discriminate.
Discriminate in terms of who I really want to hear from and be influenced by.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it took me many years to realize that because I used to think if as long as someone's got a danda and they're a swami, then that's it. And then after a while, I thought, gee, some Grahasta godbrothers I know, they're way more kind and loving and knowledgeable than some swamis are. Sorry to say that.
Right.
It's about the individual.
Right. I think in Bhagavad Gita, I can't remember where, but Prabhupada has told that devotees who are trying to surrender in Krishna consciousness, they're equal to sannyasis, equal to anyone in that particular position, because the standard again isn't the varnashram, which is utilized, no doubt, but the standard is the heart. So we have to look and see where we can find that trace of that surrendered spirit and that kind, loving spirit that we found in Srila Prabhupada. We can find traces of that in so many places. That's what we look for, the positive things as best we can.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm looking at part 3. Aham 108 Brahmasmi wrote, I enjoyed this interview very much. The questions by Gora Prabhu were excellent, sometimes tough, but relevant and always respectful. There was no agenda, no, quote, my camp versus your camp, unquote. Sripad Nyasi Maharaj is an ocean of nectar, and thus his replies were very pleasing to the ear. Anyone who remembers Sri Govinda Prabhu from the Chicago years will especially appreciate this. As an aside, when he was speaking about his service establishing the Badger community, I remembered that when I moved to Visalia in 81 for a short time, I went to the phone company and Sri Govinda working there, and Sri Govinda was working there, and he got me all set up with a new phone and even invited me to visit Badger for a quote unquote hootenanny, which was a fun a fun way of describing a quote unquote hill folk kirtan. Very interesting correlation between Kirtanananda's blasphemy of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and the violent assault. I might add that Sulochan Prabhu also blasphemed Srila Sridhar Maharaj in his book, and look what happened to him. Loved all the kijais at the end. The unfortunate feud between the two mats mentioned might have been the only downer, but you handled that well, Gora Prabhu. There is a historical account of that at the BVML site by Sripad BV Madhava Maharaj entitled Refutation of Krishna Talk, Ratha Yatra in Navadvip, unquote. Looking forward to part 4, if there is one, with His Holiness Nyasi Maharaj speaking about his time with Urukram Prabhu. Speaking of which, speaking of which, perhaps someday Urukram, now BV Padmanabh Maharaj, could be interviewed as well. He received shiksha from both Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Narayan Maharaj, so that should make for an interesting and hopefully harmonizing discussion. Also, thank you for the brief off-topic comment around the 59-minute mark. I had trouble watching the first video due to a visual distraction, but didn't want to say anything. Oh, that was just because you had something by your mouth.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But we
That's
fixed
my old man problem. Yeah.
it. Nectar all the way around. Vanchakalpa Terubius Cha. And I said, thank you for all your kind and encouraging words on this interview, Prabhu. Yes, part 4 was just recorded and at my site. Who are you, please? Nyasi Maharaj and I would like to know. Now, here's another challenging statement. This one's coming from Bhakti Robin. And
All right.
he says, quote unquote, this is a letter to Vishvakarma, who was that former president at the Toronto Temple.
Yeah, he's an old friend of mine.
Yeah, Bombay, 9th of November, 1975. And he says, he's quoting Prabhupada to Vishwakarma. So I have now issued orders that all my disciples should avoid all of my godbrothers. They should not have any dealings with them, nor even correspondence, nor should they give them any of my books, or should they purchase any of their books. Neither should you visit any of their temples. Please avoid them. And I answered, saying, your remark is not applicable. We take the most recent instruction of Srila Prabhupada, not try to use an older instruction to undermine a more recent one. Such citation shows ignorance of Srila Prabhupada's final instructions, which obviously override this, at least in the case of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And Bhakti Robin writes back, Great. Where is that quote unquote final instruction? It is all in your mind, I guess, since you cannot give any written proof. Ooh, this Bhakti Rabmi, very challenging boy.
I
So,
mean,
yes.
like I said, he can ask Satsarup Maharaj. Satsarup Maharaj traveled to all the different temples and let us know that we have the guidance of a great Vaishnava, so we're okay. Don't worry about it. That was his main message right after the departure of Srila Prabhupada. Then the GBC went to Srila Sridhar, like I said, went for Srila Sridhar Maharaj for some 3 years. Why was that going on? You know, there was clear direction, and it said that we should consult with, whether it was in writing or whether it was spoken, I don't know, but it was clearly conveyed to us through the the GBC that we should consult with Srila Sridhar Maharaj regarding our Krishna conscious philosophy, and consult with Srila Narayan Maharaj regarding the construction of the samadhi, how to do that. Those two things were there, clear from Srila Prabhupada. And anybody who was in the mission at that time knows that. I mean, it's just, that's how it was. And subsequent to developing an understanding of how our inner loyalty to Srila Prabhupada is, some people take shelter of the idea that there's a singularity in Guru, which it's a Chinta Veda Veda Tattva. In one way it is. We fully take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, our beloved Diksha Guru. And every instruction that comes to us from wherever it comes from is from Srila Prabhupada. No question about it. But simultaneously, there's the door that was opened by Srila Prabhupada to find help in our continuing growth in Krishna consciousness. You know, from my understanding, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I think I said before, took up where Srila Prabhupada left off with us, teaching us something about what it is to enter into the Madhyama Adhikari stage, which is the first stage of Madhyama, which is described in Nectar of Devotion, which means developing faith and surrender based on changing our motivation from I'm in Krishna consciousness for some purpose to I want to be Krishna conscious for Krishna's purpose, no personal purpose on my own. That's Madhyama. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj emphasized that very much, and we learned that. And you'll find it everywhere in Prabhupada's books also. Just we didn't see it so clearly, but it was brought clear to us in consciousness by the instruction of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, which, you know, we took as you know, Srila Prabhupada's, mercy. It, you know, on one level, it's Srila Prabhupada speaking. On another level, it's Srila Sridhar Maharaj speaking in his own, natural persona. So both things are there. Guru is coming to us in so many ways, and particularly it's always our Diksha Guru, our beloved Srila Prabhupada. But simultaneously, Prabhupada speaks to us in so many ways. Like everybody's had experience by some circumstance in your life. You know, somehow or other, this came up, this difficulty came up to teach me a lesson. And who's behind that? But, you know, Srila Prabhupada, our Chaitya Guru. That's Srila Prabhupada helping us. So Prabhupada is everywhere. And to think that, we're going to exclude based on some understanding that was presented at a particular time and place and not consider the later instructions is, like you said, it's just not developed in understanding.
Thank you for expressing that. If you like, I would like to address what is often referred to in discouraging us from having Srila Sridhar Maharaj or Srila Govinda Maharaj's association in the 1974 Rupanuga letter. Can I bring that up? And
Sure.
I can read it, and you can interrupt me at any time and make your comment. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a very nice photo here up at the top.
Oh boy.
You may recognize.
Yeah.
Srila Sridhar Maharaj is in the middle, is he not?
Yes, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is in the middle. He's taller than Srila Prabhupada, and Basically,
Yeah.
there's Prabhupada's disciples on the on our right side, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj's disciples on our left side. And the second one from the far left is Srila Govinda Maharaj.
Oh, okay. And then just to the left of Srila Sridhar Maharaj looks maybe like Satsarup Maharaj. I can't
Oh,
tell.
yes, it is. Just in the back, it's Satsuru Maharaj, yes.
Yeah. And then I don't know who that is next to Srila Prabhupada. There's Jayapataka Maharaj is to the right, our right of Srila Prabhupada. And
Right.
then I think that's
It's
Bhagavatam.
Pradyumna with his son.
What's his Akendra? I think his name was Akendra. His son's name.
Who, on the far right?
Pradyumna's son is his name is
Oh, right.
Akendra,
Oh, yeah. I don't remember his name.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
just see the beauty of that.
and
And
Bhavananda's there next to Jayapataka Swami, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that this was Prabhupada's general feeling, no doubt about it. But again, we have to see things in context. How is Prabhupada understanding his relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj? It may be that generally at the time of Srila Prabhupada, we're to stay away and to follow in that line. But we also know that when Achyutananda and Ramanuja were threatened by the draft, Prabhupada had them go to India. And where did they go to stay? At Srila Sridhar Maharaj's mat. And when Prabhupada first came back to India, none of his godbrothers would meet him and honor him, but Srila Sridhar Maharaj did.
Uh-huh.
And he gave him a full, there's a house in the corner of his land, and he gave Prabhupada that full house. And Prabhupada stayed there, I don't know, for a week or some time there. And
Nice.
in many talks with Srila Sridhar Maharaj about Krishna consciousness. And while doing his Gita, Srila Govinda Maharaj was living in the area above Prabhupada's laboratory, his chemistry shop. And when Prabhupada had a question about the translation of the Gita, Srila Govinda Maharaj would take that question to Srila Sridhar Maharaj in Navadvip from Calcutta, get a reply, and then come back to Srila Prabhupada and discuss it.
Oh.
So throughout the writing of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srila Govinda Maharaj was there, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj from a distance was giving comments and guidance.
Very nice. So the Bhagavad Gita that we've been reading for the last 50 years has the guidance of and input of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj as well.
Yes, yes.
Most
This
devotees would not know that. They would not know that.
This is the story given to us by Srila Govinda Maharaj. And Srila Govinda Maharaj, he's one of those souls with an absolute golden heart. Just a beautiful, lovely devotee. And his understanding and experience with Srila Prabhupada is so wonderful and amazing. One story comes to mind. They would take prasadam together in the morning, and Srila Prabhupada, loved prasadam, and he would have kachoris and so many sabjis and so many different wonderful items in the morning after offering them. And one day Srila Prabhupada looked at Srila Govinda Maharaj. Every day is taking just muri, maybe with a little yogurt or something.
Muri is like puffed rice?
Yeah, puffed rice, yeah. And Srila Prabhupada says, Govinda Maharaj, maybe his name at that time was Gorendu Brahmachari.
Okay.
Anyway, Gorendu, you're cheating your stomach, eating only muri.
Very affectionate dealings.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of, humor we can remember in Srila Prabhupada.
Boy, I'm just imagining right now had ISKCON authorities lovingly received Srila Govinda Maharaj and sat at his feet and asked him, please tell us everything that you remember about Srila Prabhupada. Wow, could have Siddhanta Prabhu ever made some amazing
Yeah, and when all the godbrothers came to visit Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj was always there. So
Wow.
he knew details about, all the godbrothers, Keshava Maharaj, Madhava Maharaj, Goswami Maharaj, many whose names I can't clearly remember. But he knew so many things, and he did speak considerably on that, and those are still available in his, in his lectures that we can find online.
I'm not sure I've even ever heard him speaking. And I'm embarrassed to say that. I mean, the thought just came to me. I would love to hear him speaking about Srila Prabhupada. Are there some recordings of him where he just speaks of his memories of Srila Prabhupada?
There is, well, the only one I can think of now is him speaking about what came about on the after Saraswati Thakur departed, and what happened in the Gaudiya Math at that time. He was aware of all that, and he
Could
gave.
you please find me that? Could you please
I
find
believe it's on at Sri Chaitanya Saraswatmat.com,
Okay.
scsmat.com.
And what would I type in to find it?
Probably just Srila Govinda Maharaj lectures.
Okay.
I'll locate it for you
Yeah,
also.
please.
There's one site online, and I forget the site's name, but I'll find it and let you know.
I would think on maybe some of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja days, maybe Srila Govinda Maharaj might have had something.
Oh yeah. I was there at least one time, I can remember. Just he was just overflowing with
Love and
beautiful
affection.
things about Srila
Wow.
Prabhupada's greatness.
Yeah. I
And
want
of
to hear
course,
those.
he was the one, we said it before, he was the one who gave the primary speech at the opening of the
Yeah.
Mayapur
Well,
Chandrodaya
that's the
Mandir.
photo. That's him. That's him right there beside me.
Yes. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was not well, so he couldn't make the speech. So Srila Govinda Maharaj did. And everybody loved it. Prabhupada loved it. All the God brothers loved it. It was a beautiful speech comparing Srila Prabhupada's, what he had done to the inconceivable level of the nature of the personality of Godhead appearing as a child in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. Quote from Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, I've read it before, but I would love to read it with you sometime. Maybe we could do it another session if you
Cool,
like.
yeah.
That'd be great. Okay, so here I don't know who the webmaster of ISKCON-truth.com is, but here he has told us under this gorgeous painting of Srila Prabhupada as ISKCON disciples and the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat disciples of. I'm just wondering who is that just after, if that is Satsarup Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and then there's looks like Satsarup, and then who's that the third devotee there? He looks like a Swami. He's got black glasses on.
Black glasses.
He's just yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's probably one of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's sannyas disciples.
Okay.
Who it is, I don't know, because I can't recognize Keshava Maharaj or Goswami Maharaj or any of them. I don't know their appearance.
Okay. Maybe someone will know. So here, whoever the head of this site is, he starts off this site with Prabhupada's God brothers, avoid them in capital letters, the Gaudiya. And then he takes a quote from Prabhupada. My God brothers have no life for preaching work. All are satisfied with a place for residence in the name of a temple. They engage disciples to get foodstuff by transcendental devices and eat and sleep. They have no idea or brain how to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Uh, yeah. So
Well, there was a lot of criticism coming from some of the God brothers of Srila Prabhupada, especially when he first came to America, that he was, engaging in giving too much to the mlechas, and feeling that he was offensive in doing that, openly broadcasting Krishna consciousness. So there was some ill feeling there. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj was constantly correcting all them and defending Srila Prabhupada.
Nice.
So, the general statement in 1974, is this where it's from? 213, must be 74.
I think there was there's a typo there because it says 02/13/04.
Must be 74, huh?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So again, like you said, it's the subsequent direction of Srila Prabhupada to get help with Krishna conscious philosophy from Srila Sridhar Maharaj kind of supersedes these things. So you have to see these things also in context, because at that time, I can remember some of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada were going to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's younger brother, who Saraswati Thakur said was a Sahaja. And, they were kind of like, rather than going to Guru to surrender, they were like shopping around. Oh, I can go here, I can get this, I can get that, I can get, always I can get, but, not with the right mood that, where I can find means to surrender to my Guru. And when Prabhupada was here, we naturally served and solely focused on his lotus feet. There's no question about that. But then, regarding how the disciple should behave on the departure of his Guru, then there's clear direction given, and simultaneously there's a natural, clear understanding that Krishna consciousness is the aim of our life, and how we can enhance our Krishna consciousness in the best way within the context of Prabhupada's direction. We should go for that. We should be able to go for that. So I don't see it in any way as contradictory, because all of us who took shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj were 100% engaged in service to Srila Prabhupada.
Mhm.
And every one of us, as far as I know, everyone who came there was thinking, oh, this is like the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Directly, he is giving us, help in continuing and developing our Krishna consciousness. There was no idea that, oh, we're replacing Prabhupada or something. That's all just an external, artificial transposing onto us. It wasn't like that at all.
Uh-huh. Okay, why don't we address the actual letter to Rupanuga, written April 28th, 74. It was sent to Washington, D.C., my dear Rupanuga Maharaj at the time. And this is the photo of him. This is the 1974 photo of Rupanuga,
Right.
there with Madhava Maharaj on the far right-hand corner, who also took shelter of Srila.
Right. And right now he's running this kind of the science department of Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math from Princeton.
Yes, a Bhaktivedanta Institute. Yes. He actually invited me there to assist him when I told him how I had assisted Sariputta by starting 3 clubs and at the different universities, University of Toronto, McMaster University, York University, and I invited Sariputta Prabhu, who's there sitting at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, just to the left of Prabhupada. And I told him I'd contacted every physics professor, chemistry professor, and biology professor to come here, Sariputta Prabhu. He said, "Oh, will you please come to Princeton and help me?" So if there's a time that I can go across the border without having them stick some inaccurate test up my nose or demanding that I inject mRNA poison into my body, when there isn't all those restrictions, then I'll be very happy to go and get Sripad Madhavapuri Maharaj's association.
And
Next,
Swarup Damodar Maharaj sent his scientific disciples to Madhava Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj at the time.
yes.
So they came and took shelter there, and ultimately received sannyas from one of Srila Govinda Maharaj's successors.
Yes, I'm in touch with one of them, Bhakti.
Shanta Maharaj, huh? Is
Shanta
it?
Maharaj. Yeah, yeah. And we see next to Sariputta is Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj sitting on the ground there. And Pushta Krishna Prabhu is just above Sariputta.
Right.
Pushta Krishna Prabhu gave me my name, Prabhupada, when I was initiated in Detroit.
Really? Wow.
He put him in charge of all the names. And yeah, so I had a lot of nice association with Push to Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, we
before.
became really close friends later. He took shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj.
Yes.
I think we talked about it
Yes.
before. So what is the
Yes.
question in this letter? Oh, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is responsible for disobeying the order of our Guru Maharaj, right?
Yes, I'll just go through here.
This was regarding
and you
the establishment of the GBC, and these are statements of one God brother to another. But I can explain also that Srila Sridhar Maharaj also worked to establish the GBC, but the whole thing collapsed and it was impossible to maintain. So to try to maintain the solidarity of the Gaudiya Math, he suggested that there be a single Acharya. So it came after the GBC had already collapsed.
Okay.
It wasn't as though he was circumventing the instructions of their
I get it. It was like a remedial measure. It was like to compensate.
Right. And eventually, shortly after that, as Srila Prabhupada did, Srila Sridhar Maharaj withdrew from the Gaudiya Math. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj's temple is not Gaudiya Math, it's Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math. As far as Prabhupada's temples are
interesting point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I don't know what else.
I'll start here. You please interrupt.
Okay.
As I read, you stop me and you can comment. Okay, so Prabhupada's saying to Rupanuga, you are right about Sridhar Maharaj's genuineness, but in my opinion, he is the best of the lot. He is my old friend. At least he executes the regulative principles of devotional service. I do not wish to discuss about activities of my godbrothers, but it is a fact they have no life for preaching work. All are satisfied with a place for residence in the name of a temple. They engage disciples to get foodstuff by transitional devices and eat and sleep. They have no idea or brain how to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. My Guru Maharaj used to lament many times for this reason, and he thought if one man at least had understood the principle of preaching, then his mission would achieve success. In the latter days of my Guru Maharaj, he was very disgusted.
Actually, I can say one thing also, that in the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote a very beautiful and lengthy Sanskrit prayer glorifying Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And at that time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur read that and he said, "Who has written this?" And they said, "Oh, Sridhar Maharaj has written." And Saraswati Thakur said, "Sridhar Maharaj did not write this. It was written through him by Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself."
Wow.
And then he went on to say, "At least I know that there will be one man left behind when I depart who can properly represent me." That was given at that time to Srila Sridhar Maharaj directly.
Very nice.
So, and that's why all of the godbrothers went to Srila Sridhar Maharaj for sannyas. That's why all of the godbrothers consulted with him and always were checking with him. Even Srila Prabhupada were checking with him in terms of their Krishna conscious understanding. All along, from when he was young in Saraswati Thakur's mission, he was most focused on listening to Saraswati Thakur. And there's a particular story at a time, Saraswati Thakur was about to give a lecture, but there was also a possibility of going to a nearby temple and kind of seeing the deities and like that. And at that time, only Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada stayed back. And Saraswati Thakur noted that. I forget, there's a subsequent story to that, but I forget it exactly.
Yeah, in the Lilamrita, it says that Bhaktisiddhanta marked our Srila Prabhupada stating that he will be a very good speaker in the future because he's a very good listener.
Yes. Yeah. So both Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj listened together and they stayed together in so many ways. So authorized to select one acharya. Yeah. This is what he did. And it was a mistake. Srila Sridhar Maharaj openly, said like that. But subsequent to this time, how is Srila Prabhupada saying that he is my Shiksha Guru? Is he lying? Of course not.
Or exaggerating?
Yeah. How can we impose that onto Srila Prabhupada? Here we can understand Prabhupada, rightfully so, seeing his godbrothers as being in that kind of unfortunate condition. But simultaneously, it should be understood that for many years when Srila Sridhar Maharaj was healthy, he was traveling all over India. He opened the center in Kurukshetra. He helped open the center in Madras, which is now Chennai. He opened the center and ran the center in Bombay when Srila Prabhupada was there in Bombay. Prabhupada would organize the meetings. Srila Sridhar Maharaj would speak and Srila Goswami Maharaj would collect. Prabhupada told that story in Bombay. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj was fully engaged in the preaching work all throughout India, but then his health became so bad, they thought he was going to leave his body by the mid-50s. So he could hardly walk. He had so much difficulty. And you can see in those pictures of Srila Sridhar Maharaj with Srila Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Maharaj looks much older. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj always said, I was sure that I would depart before him.
Right.
But then he would like lament, but now he has left. And, so many of my godbrothers have left. And he was, seeing it like that I'm practically alone.
Yeah.
Now, like that. He was deeply moved by Srila Prabhupada and what Prabhupada did. Why? Because he fulfilled the desire of their guru, their beloved guru, both of whom gave their lives to him.
Yes.
So as far as, we can understand this based on, as far as I remember, there's some particular incident that brought this about. But at the same time, we can understand it by seeing it, in the proper context. That generally that was the case with his godbrothers. And with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, there was a different feeling. And he felt Srila Sridhar Maharaj did that with the Acharya, and he did do it. But the understanding was, like I said, that this happened after the GBC, collapsed. The attempt of the GBC collapse. So, what else? You want to continue reading?
I want to continue going through this, but I have a question about what you just said, and that
okay.
is, you mentioned there was that preaching trio of our Srila Prabhupada with Govinda, maybe it was Guru.
No, it was Goswami Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj in Bombay.
Okay, but he was called Goswami Maharaj at that time?
No, I'm talking about the godbrother of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He was Goswami Maharaj, given sannyas by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. It was not Bhakti Siddhir Goswami Maharaj. This was way back when in the 40s.
No, but I'm asking, who is that Goswami Maharaj? Is that Bhakti Saranga Goswami?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know. Okay, so Prabhupada goes on here. In the latter days of my Guru Maharaj, he was very disgusted. Actually, he left this world earlier. Otherwise, he would have continued to live for more years. Still, he requested his disciples to form a strong governing body for preaching the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He never recommended anyone to be Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. But Sridhar Maharaj is responsible for disobeying this order of Guru Maharaj. That's the point of contention. And he and others who are already dead unnecessarily thought that there must be one Acharya. But you've given the background story of that.
Right. I mean, the GBC completely collapsed. So rather than allow the Gaudiya mission to dissipate into just different groups, he wanted to unite it through the idea of an Acharya. So there was a sequence of events that Prabhupada wasn't party to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As far as I understand.
The thought that came to me is, did anyone ever make a recording of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur speaking?
I don't think so. I don't know if they had any capacity to do that. I mean, even when I was first in ISKCON, we just had, the only tape recorder we had was one of those big real tape recorder things.
Right.
And we had to hook it with a microphone and so many things like that. There was and then later, within a few years, there was these cassettes that happened. But I don't even know if they had capacity to properly do that anywhere but in a radio studio.
That would be a real find. That'd be the find of the century.
Yeah, there is one film of Saraswati Thakur. I don't know. I forget where it is, but there's a film of him. Yeah.
Prabhupada goes on, if Guru Maharaj could have seen someone who was qualified at that time to be Acharya, he would have mentioned, because on the night before he passed away, he talked of so many things, but never mentioned an acharya. His idea was acharya was not to be nominated amongst the governing body. He said openly, you make the GBC and conduct the mission. So his idea was amongst the members of GBC, who would come out successful and self-effulgent acharya would be automatically selected. So Sridhar Maharaj and his two associate gentlemen unauthorizedly selected one acharya, and later it proved a failure. I don't know who those two associate gentlemen is. Was that
Yeah, no, I'm not sure either. I
okay?
mean, anyway, yeah, it was a desperate attempt to try to hold the Gaudiya mission
Right,
together.
right. The result is now everyone is claiming to be acharya, even though they may be kanishta adhikari with no ability to preach. In some of the camps, the acharya is being changed 3 times a year. Therefore, we may not commit the same mistake in our ISKCON camp. Actually, amongst my godbrothers, no one is qualified to become acharya, so it is better not to mix with my godbrothers very intimately, because instead of inspiring our students and disciples, they may sometimes pollute them. This attempt was made previously by them, especially Madhava Maharaj and Tirtha Maharaj and Ban Maharaj, but somehow or other I have saved the situation.
Right, devotees kind of wandered there, thinking, thinking um, acquisitionally that, oh, I'll get something here, rather than going to serve or thinking I'm doing this for Prabhupada service. It was like more like, oh, I have my Krishna consciousness, which I have to develop. And so it was selfish and unnecessary in the time of Srila Prabhupada. I have no doubt about that. But the point being is that if Srila Sridhar Maharaj is so much included in this, why is it that Prabhupada had his original disciples stay there when they had to stay out of America? That's a key
Right.
understanding to think about. That Srila Sridhar Maharaj was not just one of the godbrothers; he was unique. So there's some question what he did at a certain time, and godbrothers disagree. But simultaneously, after this, in 1977, there's Prabhupada's direction about finding help from Srila Sridhar Maharaj.
Thank you for explaining. Prabhupada ends, he says, we shall be very careful about them, my god brothers, and not mix with them. This is my instruction to you all. They cannot help us in our movement, but they are very competent to harm our natural progress. So we must be very careful about them. So yeah, that's the classic letter that's usually used to
Right. I mean,
discourage us.
Therefore, how do you reconcile the fact, the known fact that Srila Prabhupada referred us to Srila Sridhar Maharaj? How do you reconcile the known fact that for at least 3 years, the GBC themselves consulted with Srila Sridhar Maharaj based on that instruction from Srila Prabhupada? How do you reconcile that with this? Then how that's done, I've just indicated. That this may be a particular contextual presentation, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj did make a mistake, which he openly said, but that doesn't rule out everything else that Prabhupada said in depth about Srila Sridhar Maharaj's position, which we went over last time.
Right. So people selectively or partially only hear one perspective and they make a judgment across the board.
Seize upon that for their own, to justify their own particular position. I mean, I have no qualm with people who are in ISKCON and feel themselves that this is the way to be loyal to Srila Prabhupada. But why they need to, attack outwardly, that just seems to me that's just a symptom of their own kind of shaky position. Why attack others? Why be defensive? Of course, they're thinking along the lines of preserving the dignity of Srila Prabhupada and the mission of ISKCON and all these things. But You know, in the case of Srila, it may apply with so many others, but in the case of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, it doesn't apply.
Yeah, it's very rare we hear a balanced presentation.
Yeah, well, that's kind of it's the best I can do with it. You know, so much of it also depends on, heart understanding about the necessity of our service to Srila Prabhupada. And if somebody feels deep necessity of their service to serve in ISKCON, I honor that.
Sure.
But they're somehow threatened. That was a history. They became threatened by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and there was some breakdown. But I don't like to. I'll address these things, but it's not pleasant to have to discuss.
No, I understand. No, and I really don't like doing it, but I'm doing this for the sake of trying to add some light to the overall understanding for
I
others.
understand.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to read a little bit more and comment from the Guardian of Devotion?
Yeah, sure. I don't. Did you mark where we left off?
I'll just go through it here. My computer crashed, so I lost that spot, but I can find it in a second. I remember it by the photos.
Okay.
Okay. I believe this may have been, let's see, go a little further. I think this was the photo. Yeah, this was the last photo then. This marks the page. Okay, so let's see, where does it start? Okay. In their final meeting, Bhaktivedanta Swami prophetically refers, well, even before that, I'll say.
Yeah, these statements by Srila Prabhupada, they're not made out of thin air. They're from actual recordings.
Right. Yeah. So Prabhupada is mentioning here that planetarium, the Temple of
Right.
Understanding, also will be built under your direction. What a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Under your direction. I mean, Ambarish Prabhu has been, giving his whole life, raising $85 million. I don't even know how much more. And we had Srila Sridhar Maharaj for 10 years to consult with. And I have never read a single quote from him. Maybe it exists. Maybe he does say some things about it. I don't know. But I'm not familiar with any conversations how Srila Sridhar
I
Maharaj.
think there is some recording. I vaguely remember some recording about him speaking in terms of levels of consciousness.
Interesting. Well, I hope that has been forwarded to Ambarish Prabhu. I can contact Ambarish Prabhu if you ever come across these instructions. I'll send them.
Yeah.
My idea is to combine the Indian culture and the American money, the layman and the blind man policy. I tell them also that this will be very beneficial for the world. Here in their final meeting, Bhaktivedanta Swami prophetically, and the reason it says Bhaktivedanta Swami is not to mix up the Prabhupads. When it says, it's not that we're trying to diminish Prabhupada here.
It's he's mentioning their Prabhupada so many times.
Right.
So that's natural, and Prabhupada would like it like that. I have no doubt.
Here in their final meeting, Bhaktivedanta Swami prophetically refers to his eminent disappearance and reveals that it is in this connection that he has come to see Srila Sridhar Maharaj. In friendly jesting, they discuss Sridhar Maharaj's reticence regarding large-scale preaching work. Of himself, Sridhar Maharaj has remarked, I did not want to become a big person. That is not my nature. I did not want to move around with many people. I am just satisfied with whatever I have. My spiritual thinking is my life. The conclusions of the scriptures, the advices of the Mahajans, to relish them and practice them, and to discuss them in a small, confidential circle, that is the main goal of my life. Unquote. In the 9th canto of Shumat Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami, quoting Dhruva Maharaj, writes, My dear Lord, I am fully satisfied with whatever you have given me. I have nothing else to ask from you, for I am fully satisfied to be engaged in your service. This is the mentality of a pure devotee who does not want anything material or spiritual from the personality of Godhead. Our Krishna Consciousness movement is therefore called Krishna Bhavanamrita Sangha. the association of persons who are simply interested in thoughts of Krishna. Bhaktivedanta Swami testifies to his having personally heard Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati mark the high qualifications of Sridhar Maharaj, whom he had once requested to go to the West. In this regard, Sridhar Maharaj once remarked, quote, "My Guru Maharaj wanted me to go to the West for preaching, but I don't consider myself a fit person to preach in the West, because you see, I can't follow your intonation." So, laughing, "I must listen clearly, then I shall tell." So in this way, I told that if you order, I must go, but I don't think that I am fit to preach in the West. Anyhow, it was stopped, and Goswami Maharaj was sent to the West. That's, I guess, Bhakti Saranga Maharaj that went to London, I think.
Yeah, the title is Goswami Maharaj. I'm not sure what the Bhakti title is. Maybe it's Saranga Goswami Maharaj. But I think there was a Saranga Maharaj also. I'm not sure.
Okay,
Anyway, I'm just unclear with that. With
but
the
I'm just
godbrother.
wondering, when he refers to Goswami Maharaj was sent to the West, the only
It was
Goswami.
sent to London. It was
Right,
sent to London. Yeah.
right, right. Okay, when Sridhar Maharaj had been selected, one of his godbrothers came to him and revealed the reason why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had chosen him to preach in the West. The godbrother explained, "Do you know why Prabhupada wanted you to be sent to the West?" He said, "Because he can't be converted." I'm not following that point. Are you?
That just means that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he knew Srila Sridhar Maharaj would not be shaken by the
Okay,
cultural and philosophical overpowering of the West.
okay.
We know that story that maybe it was Goswami Maharaj, I forget who, or Ban Maharaj, who came back wearing a full Western garb,
Right, right, right.
even though he was a sannyasi. And he said they asked questions which can't be answered. And Prabhupada said, "What are those questions?" And one by one, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, who was there with Srila Prabhupada, answered them all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to read also if you ever come across that. And just 24 hours before his departure from this mortal world, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called for his beloved disciple Sridhar Maharaj and asked him to sing the song of Narottam Das Thakur, Shri Rupa Manjari Pada, the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami, Rupa
Rupa
Manjari
Manjari, yeah.
are my treasure. The Sridhar Maharaj recalls, "So I did hesitatingly. My nature is always hesitating, pushing back. Then Kunja Babu asked me to stop. I was not a good singer, so as soon as he suggested, I stopped. Then Kunja Babu asked Puri Maharaj of Kalna, 'You sing.' So he began. Then Srila Prabhupada was a little disturbed. 'I don't like to hear the sweet tune of the song,' he said. Then he stopped, and I had to begin again with Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, Se Mora Sampada. He wanted me to sing that song. That is the fulfillment of life of every one of us, to be Rupanuga, followers of Sri Rupa."
Mm.
You interrupt me anytime you like, okay?
It's just that this is indicative of our ultimate position, that we are servants of the servants of the servants of Sri Rupa Manjari. That is our, that's our aim. And how that will transpire, we don't know. When it will transpire, we don't know. It may be many lifetimes. It may be very soon. Chances are it's mostly will be many lifetimes.
Right.
But Rupa Manjari Pada, that was, Rupa Goswami was that personality.
Mm-hmm. Senior godbrothers who witnessed this exchange have described it as a quote unquote mystic transmission in which Sridhar Maharaj was given admittance into the eternal entourage of Sri Rupa Goswami.
Manjari.
Excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying Sri Rupa Manjari. Sridhar Maharaj's humble vision, however, is that he was posted as the gatekeeper, the guardian of devotion, Bhakti Rakshak, to protect the storehouse of conclusive truths about the full-fledged theistic conception of Sri Krishna as given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Further expressing his appreciation for Sridhar Maharaj's quote unquote high realizations in Krishna consciousness, Bhaktivedanta Swami says, I want to take you everywhere, he said to him, at least at the place we have in Mayapur. People are coming from all over the world. Why don't you stay there? Sometimes, unquote, sometimes it is wondered why Sridhar Maharaj apparently did not take up Bhaktivedanta Swami's offer. Sridhar Maharaj explains, I said, of course, I shall try to help you. Sometimes I shall go and stay there with you. But I really did not think at the time that I shall survive him. Uh-huh. You were explaining that earlier.
Mm.
Did you also want to take turns reading, or do you want
I'm
me to
sure,
read?
sure. Finally, Bhaktivedanta Swami refers to that planetarium. Sridhar Maharaj is very fond of Sanatana Goswami's most famous work, the Brihad Bhagavatamritam, in which devotees, devotional service, and Krishna are described very scientifically. On the basis of this transcendental literature, Sridhar Maharaj had contemplated an elaborate preaching exhibit showing graphically with the use of dioramas depicting the varieties of material and spiritual planetary systems, how the ultimate spiritual destination is Krishna's own abode, Goloka Vrindavan. Due to insufficient funds, Sridhar Maharaj humbly submitted this idea to Bhaktivedanta Swami, who approved, saying, it will be built under your direction.
Wow. So actually, this is really interesting. This whole gigantic Temple of Vedic Planetarium, it seems to be actually coming from the inspiration of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj.
That's what Srila Prabhupada is telling us. Yeah,
Wow.
he was
Wow.
thinking like that and mentioned it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, we'll do it.
Will they put a plaque in front of the TOVP acknowledging this?
We could request that. Maybe Amrish. Well, he's a gentle soul.
He is. I'll send him this video today, and it's his call if he wants to take this inspiration. But I just got this realization right now. Wow, Prabhupada is actually this whole like humongous mission that he asked Ambarish Prabhu to help organize, and all of ISKCON. It's actually coming from inspiration from Srila.
Fulfilling the ideal of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's the first time I've ever heard. I mean, I heard it should be built under the guidance of Srila Sridhar Maharaj based on Bhagavatamrita. But it just dawned on me right now that this inspiration is coming.
Are they doing dioramas? Do you know?
Yes, I heard that they will.
Okay.
I don't know where they're at right now, but yeah, I'll be very happy to forward this to Ambarish Prabhu. And just prior to, okay, you continue, please.
No, you take turns. You're next.
And just prior to his departure from the mortal world, Bhaktivedanta Swami advised his senior disciples that in his absence, when the necessity arose to consult higher authority, that they should consult Sridhar Maharaj. That's exactly the point you were making earlier. How do we reconcile all these seemingly conflicting points? In conclusion, we humbly submit that the transcendental relationship between Bhaktivedanta Swami and Sridhar Maharaj be viewed and respected in terms of their eternal spiritual positions and long-standing appreciation and affection for one another. Since the departure of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the guardian of devotion, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj has repeatedly protected the teachings of the disciplic succession from perversion and misrepresentation, as he has done for more than half a century and has come to be recognized as a Jagat Guru or world Acharya.
Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Yeah, so this is the ideal given by Srila Prabhupada and like reinforced in us by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. You know, the ideal of full surrender, at least attempting that, wanting to go in that direction, giving up all of our selfish motivations and trying to become simply servants, serving without desire for remuneration. This is the, this is the Vrindavan mood, the Vrindavan position. And it's on one level, it's very high. On another level, it's high, but it's also very simple. It's what did Prabhupada say? Simple for the simple, difficult for the complicated, something like that. Yeah. For the complex. Yeah. So we're all pretty complex, but Krishna consciousness is a very simple thing. Give yourself.
Yeah.
That's it. So we have to focus on that, giving ourselves to the service to our guru, and without wanting return. That's like, the beginning stages of real devotion. And by engaging in that way, then the material attachments and affections just will naturally fall aside. And we saw it in the time of Srila Prabhupada with great potency. We were able to go on and leave behind so many things. And in Prabhupada's absence is more difficult.
Yes.
But we found, finding the presence of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, we became strengthened again, to really endeavor to give ourselves. I myself didn't have the fortune to be there that much, but I knew devotees who practically lived with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And I was able to learn from that and learn, not simply shlokas, but learn heart experience, to feel Krishna consciousness. That's the important thing. That's the real thing, to feel the necessity of giving ourselves to our beloved Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada. That's our aim. And when we think, I'll give myself to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, that's all within the context of the fact that by doing that, we're fulfilling the desire and the hope of Srila Prabhupada. Yes. That's our feeling. Yes. That's our expression. It's not a separatist movement. We're feeling, we're serving the ideal of Srila Prabhupada, which is the directions and the teachings of his guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj is representing those teachings. Yes. He said, now in my final days, I'm able to give, what I have gotten from my Guru Maharaj. This is like, Krishna's kind arrangement, that now I've heard so many things, I've absorbed so many things, and now I can repeat that. And so he did give that. And, under his guidance, so many devotees came to an understanding of what Krishna consciousness is. Krishna consciousness is like reality. Krishna consciousness is what existence is. Krishna consciousness is the real nature of the self. And that real nature of the self is as a surrendered soul. So our aim, must be to surrender, to give ourselves. That's the mission. And sometimes in order to facilitate that, we do our service as temple presidents, as pujaris, as Sankirtan people. Sometimes, according to Prabhupada's divine instruction and preference, distributing books, doing all these different things with the ideal of coming to the stage of being a fully surrendered soul. And the only way to do that is to surrender at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. That's the disciplic succession. That's the way things go. Mm-hmm. And we may take help to do that from other great souls, but that's what we're doing.
I get it. Pardon my analogy, because I have zero faith in these bogus vaccines that are out there. But they talk about the booster, giving that extra boost, right? And I'm seeing, if they were actually real boosters, which I don't, I think they just boost your illness and destroy your immune system. But I'm seeing Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj as boosters in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada gave us everything. Yes, he did. At the same time, after Srila Prabhupada's departure, if one is really has lolium and eager for bhakti, then why would they have any? The point you were making about separation, I think that it's a unified movement. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission Just like I keep thinking of that example of that godbrother. I wish I could remember his name, short, Indian-bodied godbrother. And he said, I was chauffeuring Prabhupada in front of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And he said, Prabhupada said to me, the war is over. Now it is time for us to make allegiance with all the, all of his godbrothers. He
Mhm.
said Gaudiya Math. I know Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math is not exactly Gaudiya Math, but that general idea that all of us who are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we should be the greatest of allies. We should be eager to go on Harinam with one another. We should be eager to distribute books together. We should be eager to distribute prasadam together. So that separation it is due to the duality in certain devotees' minds. I don't think that duality existed in Srila Sridhar Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada's minds at all. Of course not.
I think, what was I going to say? That, what was your introductory statement? I had something to comment about that. Now I've lost it. Drat.
Uh, okay. I wish I could rewind right now to hear what was.
Anyway, the point being that we learn
Oh,
from
booster.
Srila
I was talking
Prabhupada.
about boosters. How I was seeing Srila Sridhar Maharaj Srila as boosters in
Oh,
our
yes, right. So what is the consciousness? The consciousness is, yes, Srila Prabhupada gave us everything, but what is our capacity to absorb that? We're
uh-huh.
limited. We have limited capacity. Why we can't take help to absorb that direction given by Srila Prabhupada? So all I know is that Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj, verified by Srila Prabhupada and verified by my own heart experience, that they're carrying the same banner as Srila Prabhupada. What's going on with others, I have no idea. But the point being that we have a safe shelter in service to Srila Prabhupada, and to find and to take that shelter. Whether, I don't know, involving a unity of all different people of different stripes, whether that's possible or not, I don't know. In a perfect world, it would be ideal. But, it's not a perfect world. There's
Right.
too many differences and difficulties and, perceived deviations and all these things, that make it, not a viable thing as far as my experience has been, Prabhu.
I heard that in Hawaii, at a temple that our godbrother Gopa Vrindapal Prabhu speaks at, that the disciples of Srila Bodhayan Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Narayan Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, they all come together and do kirtan and hear Krishna Katha, Hari Katha. And I'm thinking, wow, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, it may be so. I don't know. I remember Gopa Vrindapal. I knew him in LA. He's a sincere, really nice, kind of mellow, but also very deeply dedicated person. I know
Uh-huh.
it in that way. But what can I say, Prabhu? We've received clear indications from our gurus regarding some of the outside leaders, and we have to make discrimination. That's our Sri Chaitanya Saraswati necessity,
Uh-huh.
as far as I've understood.
Would you like to read? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Anyway, I was just going to say, just like Srila Prabhupada, wanted us to continue in the line given by his Guru Maharaj. In a similar way, Srila Sridhar Maharaj wants us to continue in that line. And when there's a change in that line, that we have to be alert.
Uh-huh.
It's this is another thing that is there, but it's not of practical, deep, experiential level. It's not a viable thing to get into it. It's only argumentative, and I just don't like to do that.
Right. Well, I like the idea of trying to be a honeybee, and even though there may be differences between different sanghas, I just want to take the nectar that I can from everybody, you know, and if there's some discrepancy, well, okay, let's try to overlook that and get the good stuff.
Mm.
Would you like to read the next paragraph? Although
Sure, sure. Although outwardly he was like a lion, inwardly he was very, very sweet. Yet it could be traced only in his internal sweetness. Outwardly, the way of love was worshipped by him with grandeur and awe and reverence, but his object was the simple and beautiful divine love of Vrindavan, and his temperament in establishing that in the world was just like a lion's. After his departure, I described his life in one shloka. If, what is that? If he were living today, I think he would say that Sridhar Maharaj has imprisoned me in a cage of poetry.
no, what I'm just trying to see the previous paragraph before that. Since the departure of our Prabhupada, he repeatedly protected the teachings of this. Has done more than have come to be okay. So this is describing. Is this describing? I'm trying to figure out right now. Was this just describing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Sridhar Maharaj?
I was also wondering about that. I believe that he's describing Saraswati Thakur, because in the end it says Sridhar Maharaj has imprisoned me in a cage of poetry. There was something something spoken like that in the time of Sridhar Maharaj, because of all the disciples, Srila Sridhar Maharaj was the Sanskrit expert who could write so many different Sanskrit poems and songs in glorification of our disciplic line. And you can find those in our Kirtan book. Prayers to Bhakti Siddhanta, prayers to Saraswati Thakur, prayers to Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, prayers to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, he's written a beautiful Sanskrit composition of about 60 verses in glorification of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like a summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Oh yes, I've seen that. I'd love to read that with you sometime.
Yeah,
that would be great.
And my brain is so dead that I can't even remember the name of it.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. Prayers to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, and Prabhupada Pranam, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Nikila Bhuvana Maya Chirna Vichinna Katri Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mohanta Datri Shitil Shitilita Vidirag Radya Radeshatani Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. With this first step, he vigorously cut under. I'm assuming this is a prayer that was written by
Srila Sridhar Maharaj for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta.
Ah, good. When his first step, with his first step, he vigorously cut asunder the whole plane of exploitation, and with his second, he has put a stop to all the calculations of the different scholars with their different conceptions of salvation, liberated sages. With his third step, he has minimized the hardness and stiffness of the rules and regulations of calculative devotional service by a touch of the divine love. Crossing Vaikuntha, he has given us the worship of Radha and Govinda. Calculation, the rules and regulations, awe, reverence, all these things are minimized, checked, slackened with the softness of Vrindavan within, and with the hardness of a devastator without. He created havoc in the materialistic world, fighting with one and all, single-handedly fighting against the whole world and cutting asunder everything. That was his external attitude. And his second attitude was to put a stop to all scholarly researchers and doctorates of different departments and to stop their boasting research. And third, to minimize, to slacken the grandeur of the worship of Narayan. He caused the domain of love to descend into this plane with the service of Radha Govinda, establishing the flow of divine love from the heart as all in all. With that welcome, with that we come to serve our object of worship, and he represented the service of Radha Govinda as the highest attainment. That was his history. The real existence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada is in Bhaktisiddhanta Vani, his divine teachings. May that Bhaktisiddhanta Vani dance eternally within the core of your heart. Beautiful.
This, I think, is Srila Sridhar Maharaj's commentary on that poem. You know, revealing, sometimes we have like direct translations, and then with Srila Prabhupada, we have purports. But with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, in his Bhagavad Gita, that I think he completed in 1946, he's given some elaboration into the understanding of the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita in his translations. Originally, he wrote it in Bengali. So he's translated from the Sanskrit into Bengali, and now it's been rendered into English, giving us indication of the nature of the shlokas with some purports, but only comparatively few compared to Srila Prabhupada. But it's an excellent complement to Bhagavad Gita as it is, as far as I can see and understand.
You mean Srila Sridhar Maharaj's Bhagavad Gita, or
Yes.
okay, beautiful.
Sometimes we read it together, the different shlokas, and discuss. You know, it's just really wonderful.
Yes, I've never read it before. I'd like to read it one day.
Oh, this is Srila Sridhar Maharaj's explanation of Gayatri. It's unbelievable.
Oh, can you
want to read this?
Yes, please. Would you like to read?
Okay. The meaning of Brahma Gayatri mantra must bring us to the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Gayatri mantra and the Srimad Bhagavatam are one and the same. It is the very gist of the Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is the elaborate commentary of Gayatri. Artoyam Brahmasutranam Bharatartha Vinirnya Gayatri Bhashya Rupal Sau Vedartha Parivimrita. The meaning of the Gayatri mantra must be in the line of Srimad Bhagavatam. If we analyze how this is possible, we shall uncover the steps between the Gayatri mantra and the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the meaning of Gayatri? The word Gayatri is a combination of two Sanskrit words, Gana, which is sung, and Tridate, which gives deliverance, like mantra, mana, Tridate, deliver the mind. So this is that which is sung gives deliverance. This means a kind of song by which we can get our salvation, relief, emancipation. Gayatri is known as Veda Mata, the mother of the Vedas, and Gayatri has produced the whole Veda. If we examine the Vedic conclusion from its most condensed aphorisms to its most extensive expression, we shall find that it begins with Omkara, the Vedic syllable Om. That truth is expressed as the Gayatri mantra. Then it appears in the form of the Vedas, then is Vedanta Sutra, and finally the Vedic conclusion is given in its fullest expression in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Since the meaning, the purpose of Vedic knowledge progresses in this line, the Gayatri mantra must contain within it the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is, the Krishna conception of Godhead is the highest. Is that it?
No, I'd like to ask a question at this point, please. I was just speaking to one friend who has gone many times to India and spent a lot of time with people of different different aspects of appreciating India's culture, and he was saying that I believe he said he heard it from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, that the first which I've traced back to the Shankaracharya's school. The first word in the Vedas is ik, but my understanding is the first word of the Vedas is om. Would you like to make a comment on that?
To be honest, I'm not sure, but the first word Om is the sound coming from the Brahma Jyoti, but ultimately it comes from Krishna's flute, we're told. And Ek simply means that it's coming from one source.
Right.
Now they may say this means Brahman alone, but Ek can also mean that singular personality of Godhead,
Right.
Sri Krishna. You know, it's just, it depends on the vision that one has.
Right.
Because the Vedas are such that you can see all the different interpretations come alive in the Veda. So depending on the heart position, we're going to go in different directions. So by the heart of Veda Vyas, we conclude with Srimad Bhagavatam, which is so the author, the actual author of the Vedas, concludes by giving us Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the ultimate aim of the Vedic literatures, which are very complex and aimed in many cases at nicely functioning within this world in such a way so that we become elevated and ultimately come to a stage where we're able to engage in more spiritual development. But the teachings of Lord Chaitanya cuts through all that directly and brings us to Srimad Bhagavatam directly. So here Guru Maharaj is saying the Gayatri mantra must have the same conclusion as Srimad Bhagavatam. It must be so. So this must be the meaning of Gayatri mantra. But the problem is how to extract Srimad Bhagavatam, the Krishna conception, from within the womb of Gayatri. I heard that Jiva Goswami has given such an interpretation, but I could not find where it was written. I had heard that he has given the meaning of Gayatri leading to Krishna consciousness, because that's what we were told in the early days initially, that Gayatri will later Srila Sridhar told us, but I'm pretty sure we heard it from Srila Prabhupada also, that Gayatri will assist us in improving the quality of our service, surrender, and the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Mm-hmm. That the Gayatri mantra functions with us until the stage of purification. And at that point, Krishna's name continues with us, but Gayatri is left behind. So Gayatri is a functional mantra, which I think Srila Sridhar Maharaj will continue with that. The general meaning of Gayatri is that song which grants liberation. Now, liberation must have some positive meaning. Liberation means not freedom from the negative side, but positive attainment. This is the definition given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Muktir hivanya ta rupam swarupena vyavastita. Until and unless we attain the highest possible positive position, mukti, salvation, has not been effected. Mere withdrawal from the negative plane cannot be called liberation. Hegel has said that the object of our life is self-determination. We must determine our normal function in the organic whole, not mere emancipation from our negative side, but participation in the positive function in the domain of service. So here he's casting aside the limited Brahman notion of the absolute. That within the absolute, there is a reality of positive engagement of the individual in loving, because that's what the meaning of love is. It must be individual and it must be reciprocal. And there's a reason behind why love is a reciprocal thing, because ultimately we reciprocate with Krishna. And here those reciprocal things are reflections of that ultimate reciprocation with Krishna.
I've noticed that throughout his writings, Srila Sridhar Maharaj often makes reference to Hegel. Did he particularly like him as a philosopher?
Well, when he was at university, he studied Hegel, and he liked Hegel. But there's two stages of Hegel. The young Hegel was very much pointing towards Marx and a Marxist interpretation of the world. And the later Hegel was more of a spiritualist.
I see.
And he's the one who cited Jalaluddin Rumi, who gave the aphorism, die to live. So Sridhar Maharaj would often say that, die to live, means that the ego must die
and
the soul will live.
Sorry.
Yes.
Say that again, please. I interrupted you.
Oh, I just said
Say that again.
means that the ego must die and the life will come at that time, the life of reality, the life of the soul.
I noticed that Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he also adopted that saying. He would quote that often.
Yeah. I mean, that's our aim. We're as Srila Govinda Maharaj told us, we're destroying or tunneling through the mountain of ego. Srila Prabhupada blasted a tunnel, and Srila Govinda Maharaj saw himself as continuing blasting in that tunnel so we could follow and eventually get past the mountain of ego. But we still have, we have a ways to go. So we still are in desperate need of our beloved gurus.
For sure.
Okay, where were we? The word Gayatri?
The word Gayatri comes
from two Sanskrit roots, Ganat and Trayate. Trayate means positive attainment to the final stage. Swarupena Vyavastiti. And Ganat means not mere sound, but musical sound. That musical sound which grants us the highest positive deliverance indicates the Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the flute song of Sri Krishna. So amazing connection, huh?
Yeah.
Gayatri must connect with the song of Sankirtan. And ultimately the flute song. You can go on reading, Prabhu. I'm getting all dried up.
The purport of the Brahma Gayatri mantra is as follows. The first word is Om. Om is the seed mantra which contains everything within it. Bur is where we are, Bu Loka, the world of our experience. Bhuva is the world of mental acquisition. It is the support, the background of our experience. Our present position of experience is the effect of our mental acquisition. That we are here in the world of experience is no accident. We have acquired this position by our previous karma. The physical sphere, this present world of experience, is only the product, the outcome of our previous mental impulses. And the subtle world of previous karma, the mental sphere, is known as Bhuva Loka. The next word in the mantra is Swaha. Above Bhuva Loka is Swa Loka, the mental world. Bhuva Loka means acceptance and rejection, what to do and what not to do. Quote, I like this, I don't like that. Unquote. Swaloka, however, is the plane of decision, the world of intelligence, Buddhiloka. Our intelligence tells us, you may like this, but don't do that, for then you will be the loser. That plane, the plane of reason, is known as Swaloka. In this way, this material world is composed of three general layers: Bur, the physical world; Bhuva, the mental world; and Swa, the intellectual world. Wow, I never heard it explained like that. That is cool. That is cool. Of course, a more detailed analysis will reveal 7 layers: Bur, Bhuva, Swa, Maha, Jana, Tapa, and Satyaloka. This has been dealt with in detail by Sanatana Goswami in his Brihad Bhagavatamritam. Here, these 7 strata have been summarized in 3 planes of existence: physical, mental, and intellectual. And these 3 planes of experience have been summarized in a word, Tat. Would you like to read?
The next word in Brahma Gayatri is Savitur. Savitur generally means Surya, the sun. And the sun means figuratively that which shows or illuminates, that by which we can see. The 3 gross and subtle strata within this world are shown to us by a particular thing, Savitur. And what is that? The soul. Actually, the world is not shown to us by the sun, but by the soul. What really gives us perception and allows us to see gross things. It is not actually the sun that helps us see. We see with the help of the soul. This is found in Bhagavad Gita. Yata prakash shayatyeka kritsnam lokam imam ravi. The soul expresses this world to us just as the sun does. The sun can show color to our eyes, but the ear can reveal the sound world, and the hand can reveal the touch world. So really in the center is the soul. It is the soul who gives light to the world, who gives us an understanding of the environment, the world of perception. All perception is possible only because of the soul. Here the word savitur, which generally means sun, can only mean soul. For the soul, like the sun, shows us everything. So it's, it's really rather obvious, but it's brought out by Srila Sridhar Maharaj in such a beautiful, clear way that, just like we've seen, if we've ever seen a person leave their body, initially, while they're there, you can feel the life flowing through the body. But when they leave, suddenly it's an empty corpse. There's nothing there. There's no functionality. Yeah. So the whole idea, the whole means of perception and understanding is in this savitur, in the sun itself. Where are we? All seven strata, right?
Yeah.
All seven strata of our existence are represented by Bhur, the physical plane, Bhuva, the mental plane, and Swa, the intellectual plane, here have been reduced to one entity, Tat. That is shown by the sun, which in this context indicates the soul. Here, soul means the individual soul. The individual soul is the cause of his world. Not that the mind is in the world, but the world is in the mind. Berkeley has said that the world is in the mind. Here it is being expressed that everything is seen with the help of the sun. If there is no sun, everything is dark, nothing can be seen. So without light, nothing can be seen. And in a higher sense, light means the soul. The soul is the subject of the world's, the soul is the subject, and the soul's object is the seven planes of experience within this world. So
I wanted to ask, who's Berkeley?
Berkeley was an English philosopher who said that the whole world is produced from the mind.
Okay.
He had that philosophy. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj also describes in subjective evolution that is our understanding also, that the world has become manifest based on the consciousness of the conditioned souls. So like collectively, this world has become manifest, and we're sharing experiences to some extent, but only to some extent, because each one of our perceptions in and of itself is unique. We have unique particular perceptions of this world, and it's resulted from life. Like Prabhupada said, life comes from life. It's not that it's, this world is somehow manifested by some chemical reaction, but rather the material world becomes manifest through the agency of Brahma and the Vishnus, the Vishnu incarnations, becomes manifest based on the conditioned desires of the conditioned souls. So within that, the sphere of desire, there's 13 different levels that contain different levels of conscious development. And here in the earth, we're in the middle plane, which we're told, I think Srila Prabhupada told us, that this is actually the best position to be in all the worlds, because it's not so hellish that we can't concentrate, and it's not so nice that we can't engage in spiritual life. It's just in the middle, which is, oftentimes it's the best position.
I heard Prabhupada say that the demigods are lining up to take birth here.
That was also current when I was in ISKCON in the 70s. I can remember saying that. And I see some of the kids, they're those who have come to join this movement. Okay, the next word in the Gayatri mantra is Varenyam. Varenyam means puja, worshipable, venerable. This indicates that although within this plane, the objective world, the soul is the subject, there is another domain which is to be venerated and worshipped by the soul. That is the super soul area. So the area of spirit, the entryway to which is revealed by the super soul itself. The super soul is the representative of the Lord who's with us at all times, who's within everything in this world, and who will give us direction, based on the innate desire that is developed by our contact with the holy name, contact with pure Vaishnavas, developing our Gyata Sukriti, known Sukriti, which transforms into faith and spiritual development. Okay. You want to go on, Prabhu?
Okay.
It's the worshipable plane, is it?
Yes, correct. Thank you. That worshipable plane of transcendental existence is known as Bargo. Bargo means the super subjective area, the area of the super soul. These words I've never even heard. It's like in the domain of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Like I've never heard the word super subjective ever.
Yeah, well, Srila Sridhar Maharaj it was a developed intellect, and I'm amazed because he doesn't know English fully, but the English that he does know is on the level of, a college scholar or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love learning new words from our acharyas. So, this is mentioned in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. Srila Vyasadeva says that here he is going to deal with another world whose pristine glory is so great that by its own ray all misconceptions are brushed aside. The subject is the soul, and its object is all these worlds of experience. And the supersubject is the venerable area which is superior to the subject, the soul. That is the supersubjective area. Do you want to make a comment on that? I'm trying to get it to stick.
Super subject means, like when he says subjective, he means that there's a supreme subject of which we're all objects.
Okay.
In other words, it's not subjective in the way we understand subjective. It's based on the position of the supreme, super subjective. He's the super supreme personality. It's just that kind of like an early like turn of the century English usage, the
Right.
English which he learned at university when he was, in his 20s, in the 1920s.
Okay. The word Bargo means, quote, more subtle than the soul, unquote, and, quote, holding a more important position than the soul, unquote. So this means the super soul, the Paramatma. In general, of course, the word Bargo ordinarily means light, just as an X-ray can show us what the ordinary eye cannot see. Bargo is Swarup Shakti, higher, more powerful light that can reveal the soul. And that energy, Bargo, belongs to whom? It belongs to Deva. What is the meaning of the word Deva? Deva means, quote, who is beautiful and playful. That is Sri Krishna. Reality the beautiful. He is not a non-differentiated substance, but is full of Leela, pastimes. Deva means pastimes and beauty combined, and this means Krishna.
So the ultimate absolute isn't just a big energy, but rather he's a specific transcendental personality who is the source of it all and is all these different things, but isn't himself, beautiful and loving and the most perfect person that we all have a gut instinct to want to find. Where is that person that's meant for us? That's Krishna.
Yes, yes. His domain is Bhargo, brilliant, and it is Varenyam, to be venerated by the Jiva soul. What is the nature of that Swarup Shakti? That is the Vaibhava, the extension of Srimati Radharani. She holds the full service responsibility and the energy to serve Krishna. Bhargo is no less than the Vaibhava, the extended body of Srimati Radharani, which contains everything for the service of Krishna. Bhargo represents Mahabhava, the predominated moiety, and Deva, Krishna, is Rasaraj, the predominating moiety. Now, I've looked up this word moiety before, but I forget what it means.
It means like the as far as I understand it, like the supreme, the supreme, the ultimate object of the world. As Guru Maharaj would say, the subject of everything.
Thank you.
Are you going to look it up, huh?
No, I trust your.
No, do look it up, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there's anything additional. Each of two parts into which a thing is or can be divided. It means Radha Krishna, I guess.
Moiety, Radha Krishna, right? So my misunderstanding. Moiety.
Okay. Example of moiety. Moiety is a share or a part. One of the groups into which people are divided in society is an example of a moiety, a half. A synonym for moiety, component, constituent, part, portion. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it's much. I mean, it's obvious. I misunderstood.
It's okay. The predominating moiety. In other words, of Radha and Krishna, he's the predominating. Although they say that Radharani.
He's the predominated, right? Okay, so there's two: the predominating and the predominated.
But Radharani is Madan Mohan Mohini, so she's predominating over Krishna.
Exactly, which is why Krishna is bewildered and needs to descend as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's bewildered by what it is that Srimati Radharani has that he can't understand, that overwhelms him, himself. The personality of Godhead is overwhelmed by the love of this personality. So, what is the nature of that love? And what is she feeling for me to generate that love? He wants to know that. So he spends his last 12 years probing that in Jagannath Puri.
Right. I had the good fortune to visit the Kambira where he was doing that.
Yes, I also went. I think they have those wooden chapels there, right? I think so. Yeah.
The Radha Kanta temple, it's called. Would you like to continue?
Yeah. So where do we leave off?
Right at the top of the page. It's a new page.
In the Gayatri mantra, we are requested, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, come meditate. What sort of meditation is possible in the plane of dedication? Not abstract meditation, but service cultivation. Krishnanu Shilanam. Dhimahi means to participate in the spontaneous flow, the current of devotion in Vrindavan. And what will be the result? Diyo yo na prachodayat. The capacity of our cultivation will be increased. As we serve, a greater capacity and willingness to serve will be given to us in remuneration, just as interest is added to capital in the bank. Dasa kori vetana more deha prema dhana. In this way, our dedicating principle will be increased again and again. Dhimahi means aradhana, worship. It cannot but be explained in terms of aradhana, puja, seva, worship, adoration, loving service. D is derived from the word buddhi, which generally means that which we cultivate with the help of our intelligence. But here, D is a reference to that venerable intelligence which descends into this plane to help us cultivate service. So dhimahi does not mean abstract meditation, but devotional service. This is the underlying meaning of Gayatri mantra. Pretty amazing, huh? Gayatri, the song for deliverance, also means Sankirtan. Kirtan is also sung, and it also improves us towards the highest goal. The Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also reinstates us in our highest serving position. So Brahma Gayatri, in connection with Mahaprabhu, comes to mean Krishna Kirtan. Then it reaches Vrindavan in the flute Kirtan. And when we enter Vrindavan, we shall find that the sweet sound of Krishna's flute helps us to engage all the Lord's servants in their respective duties. When the flute is sounded, the gopis and others are adjusted in their respective duties. At night, the gopis, hearing the sound of the flute, will run to the Jamuna thinking, oh, Krishna is there. And when Yasoda hears the song of Krishna's flute, she thinks, my son is there. He's coming home soon. In this way, the sound of the flute engages all the servants of the Lord in their respective positions and inspires them to be mindful of their service. In my commentary on Gayatri Mantra, I have written, Dear Aradhana eva nanyat iti tad radha padam dhimahi. All other services are represented fully in Radhika. Like branches, they are all part of her. Madhurya rasa is the chief or mukhya rasa, the combination of all rasas. Srimati Radharani is the Mahabhava. She represents the entire serving attitude. So all the different relationships, Vatsalya, Sakya, Dasya, it's all contained within Madhurya.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So everything is there expressed in Madhurya. Ultimately, it's the pinnacle of love and loving relationship. But each one of the particular devotees in the transcendental realm are fully satisfied in their own particular position. It's not as though that there's some lacking in any particular position. But sometimes people do change, like the case of Shamananda, who went from a cowherd boy to a gopi. I don't know if you know that story or not, but
yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a long story.
Right.
So is there more?
Yeah, I was just wondering about his commentary on the Gayatri Mantra. Narasingha Maharaj, Jagadguru Swami, I was asking him for a copy of that before he departed. And I don't know if there's any copies of that around anymore.
I mean, the only one that would probably have something like that is Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, Dear Krishna.
Uh-huh.
I'll write that down and ask him.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I may have an ebook version of it, but it'd be nice to have the hardbound. Thank you. The flute song of Sri Krishna expressed as the Gayatri Mantra is reminding us and engaging us in our service. And what is our service? Our service must be to surrender ourselves in the service of Srimati Radharani, to accept the suggestion of Radharani. The Gayatri Mantra will excite us to be mindful about Srimati Radharani's lotus feet, to obey her orders. She is mainly representing the whole serving area. So to try to engage ourselves in her service, under her order, to accept her direction and to obey her, that is the service of Sri Radha. In this way, the meaning of the Gayatri Mantra has been drawn to Radha Dasyam, self-determination, Swarupena Vyavastiti. In the meantime,
we've seen in Srila Prabhupada's prayer on the Jaladuta, right? How he says to Krishna, oh Krishna, my Guru Maharaj is so dear to Srimati Radharani that if he becomes happy, she will become happy. So you please make Srimati Radharani happy by me, allowing me to make my Guru happy.
So nice. Yeah.
He's seeing in that context, also, even though he's seeing more in the context of, a preacher, still he's understanding this ultimate position. So we ourselves understand this, but at the same time, view it with respect from a distance. What is that? I can never remember. There's an inscription on the entrance to Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math.
Ragala Puja Pata.
Yes, yeah. I'm getting a little tired. Plus, my brain is already shot. Raghava.
I'm trying to.
I don't know. I don't remember clearly. Gaurava Bange. Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bange.
Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bange.
Yeah. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We can look at the translation. It's to be noted that when we talk about Radha Dasyam, we're talking about understanding our objective, but at the same time, understanding the context of our current condition as given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that we only honor those things from a distance. So like Srila Sridhar Maharaj was asked directly by Goswami Maharaj about reading the books of Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj just said that my Guru Maharaj is not done. First he said, Goswami Maharaj said, well, if we can't read them, why did he write them? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, we're not atheists. That was his reply. It's not as though it's limited to this lifetime. He may have written it for us 5 lifetimes from now. We don't know, but we have to serve in the line coming from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That is our safety, and that is our duty to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, who gave their lives to him.
Yes, so here's the translation. Matala Harijana Vishaya Range Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bange. The servants of Hari are engaged in lavish affairs, handling material wealth, and engaging all manner of things in the Lord's service. They worship the path of spontaneous devotion with Gaurava Bange in a mood of awe and reverence. And to show that the Ragapat is above all, above our heads, they remain as servants, being a little distant and below, praying for that of a servant's duty, not for that of a confidential nature, not to bring that highest divine love down here, but to hold that upon their heads. So I've heard of God. Yes, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I think it's like that, throughout our devotional life, until we come to the stage where we're actually called to that position. Because the devotees never think themselves qualified. They never think that, oh, I'm this, I'm that. That's not the devotional line as we've understood it. From this mantra, and also from Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Those things come by higher will. It's not as though we, like, somehow or other can qualify for it, because we have no qualification.
So I've heard of God brothers reading, for example, the book Govinda Lilamrita, and I even have a copy of it here that I got a few years ago, which I've never read.
Kaviraj Goswami, right?
Pardon me? Kaviraj Goswami, yeah.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, is that an example of going against this principle of Pujala Raga Pata Gaurava Bange, as far as you're concerned?
As far as I've understood, yes. That those books that deal with the higher love relations of Radha and Krishna can be approached only when we've gone beyond the stage of anartha-nivriti and entered into those past nishta and begin to come to the stage of rati. I think something like that. So as long as we have material attachment, we're gonna transpose our mundane conceptions onto that almost uncontrollably. It will be at least in a subtle way, seen in a mundane view. We have to be careful with things like that. Otherwise, we can become kind of influenced in that direction and we've been warned by Saraswati Thakur and Prabhupada about those things. You know, Kaviraj Goswami quotes those in a few places in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj told us that we should be satisfied with that. Kaviraj feels that we you know, this is our diet, so we accept that from Kaviraj Goswami.
Thank you.
That's the understanding that I received from the teachings of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj, and from finding confirmation in Prabhupada's books also.
In the meantime, the partial representations in Vatsalya and Sakya Ras are also part and parcel of the original mellow of conjugal love, Madhurya Ras. The Vatsalya Ras devotee will serve Nanda and Yashoda. The Sakya Ras devotee will serve Sridham and Sudam. But ultimately, the whole system is one conception. In one conception is included in Radharani. Radha Dasyam, the service of Srimati Radharani, is the ultimate meaning to be extracted from the Gayatri mantra. That is the supreme end of our life. It cannot but be so. Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate or full-fledged theism to be extracted from the Vedas, Upanishads, and so many other scriptures. All the revealed truth rises to its acme, to its highest position, in the conception given by Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us that the highest realization, self-determination, is to be found in the service of Srimati Radharani, that under her guidance we may serve Sri Krishna. We must put all our energy at her disposal and devote ourselves to her service. She actually knows how to serve Krishna. We aspire for a direct connection with her service. What is the meaning of the purport of Bhargovai Rishabhanu Atma Vibhav Eka Aradhana Shri Puram? Banu means the sun, or who shows us by light. Radharani is the daughter of Vrisha, Bhanu. So I selected the word Bhanu to represent her personal extended self. I given the word Vaibhav. Vaibhav means what comes out as resourcefulness or extended self. Prabhav is the central representation, and Vaibhav is the outer extension. The very gist of Swarup Shakti is Srimati Radharani, and the whole Swarup Shakti is her extended self. The town of her beautiful service, that is, the country, abode of her beautiful service, the whole Swarup Shakti. And we've just got one more page left after this, Maharaj. Please continue.
Fantastic. Just as the rays of light extend from the sun, the whole internal potency is an extension of Mahabhava, Sri Radhika. She has developed herself in such a beautiful area of brilliance, of internal energy, and thereby she serves her Lord. All these necessary things have sprung from her. To help her in serving her Lord, they all come out. When the entire internal energy is condensed in a concise form, it is Mahabhava, Radharani. When Radharani wants to serve, she extends herself in limitless different ways. And with some contribution from Baladev and Yogamaya, the whole spiritual world, including Vrindavan, Mathura, and Vaikuntha, evolves to assist Srimati Radharani in the service of Sri Krishna. In this way, I have drawn out Radha Dasyam as the meaning of the Gayatri mantra and have tried to represent it in Sanskrit verse.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I don't remember having seen that, the actual Sanskrit verse. It must be there. I'll ask Goswami Maharaj. I've written it down.
Well, it's a very wonderful service that Bhakti Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, formerly Dear Krishna Prabhu, did by compiling this wonderful book.
Yeah, I mean, it was his sincere desire that all of our God brothers and the society itself get the benefit of the service and the association of, a great Paramahansa Vaishnava. And somehow or other, it wasn't able to happen. so Goswami Maharaj is going on with his service, giving, he gives lectures 2 or 3 times a week on the, excuse me, just a minute. On the website Infinity Media. So to hear him speak is very powerful, because he sat with Srila Sridhar Maharaj for years. He would come probably 4 to 6 months out of the year and stay with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, recording him and learning from him, asking questions and so many things. And at other times, he was back at his temple in San Jose. And so what he gives in his lectures oftentimes are direct commentary on something that has been taken from the speaking of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So it's very illuminating and very giving us a very deep understanding of what Krishna consciousness is, and all within the context of, our service to Srila Prabhupada. That's one thing. Goswami Maharaj, all of our acharyas see it in that way, that we are wholly indebted to Srila Prabhupada for everything. And, so imagine being indebted for Srila Prabhupada for such amazing personalities as Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj. It just increases our debt, so many times over. It's that kind of understanding and feeling is there, not a separatist thing like, oh, now we've gone to Sridhar Maharaj and left Prabhupada behind. That's only a kind of an external view that, oh, if you accept another, you're rejecting the one. But that's not understood in our Vaishnava philosophy. The position of Shiksha Guru is
Right.
is very high and very important. I mean, get Shiksha to learn.
Sorry,
Go on,
ahead.
Prabhu. No, it's okay. I'm done.
I was thinking in our ISKCON, if any godbrother wanted to take shelter of, say, Indradyumna Swami or the Hridayananda Maharaj, or any of the 100 gurus, the initiating gurus we have, that's for personally acceptable. That has been perfectly acceptable. However, if one starts going to Srila Prabhupada's intimate friend and Shiksha Guru, oh, that's very wrong. You're no longer allowed to ever speak in ISKCON again. It's like, what? It doesn't really add up. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it's really unfortunate, and it's largely like a defensive mechanism, thinking that if that's allowed within ISKCON will somehow or other lose touch with the preeminence of Srila Prabhupada. And that's just not the case. That's just not the mood of Srila Sridhar Maharaj or Srila Govinda Maharaj. Prabhupada was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's godbrother, but he sees Prabhupada in complete reverence. How that kind of surrender has come from one of his godbrothers is astounding to him, mind-blowing, worshipable, honorable to him. And the ISKCON society, we've been taught repeatedly by Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj that we should honor and worship that society given by Srila Prabhupada, and wish the best for that organization to go on according to Prabhupada's will and direction.
Sure.
And at the same time, we without ability to avoid, we see so many difficulties. But at the same time, the best thing we can do is to ourselves become Krishna conscious, try to become Krishna conscious, and by the effect of that, be able to help on a deeper level than an external organizational level. That's what we're thinking, because Krishna consciousness is the real thing that Prabhupada gave. And if we can become Krishna conscious, how much more we'll be able to spread the actual teachings of Srila Prabhupada. You know what I'm saying? So there's we're always dealing with external perception, external understanding, but we have to direct ourselves more deeply to the inner essence of the thing. Why did Prabhupada establish ISKCON? Why is ISKCON there?
Right.
It's there for the disciples to develop Krishna consciousness. to come to the level of real Vaishnavas. And in that consciousness, to be very exclusivist is not very healthy. You know, that's as much as I can say.
I've heard from our god brother Padmanabh Maharaj, Bhagavat Maharaj. They're stating that the importance is to become Krishna conscious, not society conscious.
Right. That Srila Sridhar Maharaj said.
I see. I noticed in this list here of books, Lives of the Saints is given, and I've never actually seen that in a hardcover, but I have this compilation here. It's a manuscript, Lives of the Vaishnava Saints, translated from original Bengali source materials by Bhakti Vedanta
Ananda Sagar Maharaj, is it?
Mahayogi.
Oh, Mahayogi Maharaj. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming, so this Lives of the Saints, is this a compilation on all of our Parishads based on what Srila Sridhar Maharaj has said?
Yes. And I've had a copy of it. I don't have a copy anymore. I don't think it was ever printed. I think it remains in that format.
Yeah, I have it. Like I have a second copy of it. Whoops, sorry.
It's just bound, right? It's not actually printed, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
manuscript.
Well, you've got more than I do.
No, I've you know, I'm ashamed to say I've held on to these books for years, but I've not explored them. I'm exploring them with you, and I'm grateful to have your guidance as we go through them. Is there another book here that you see in this list that, if you're up for another session, we can go through?
I don't know. Let's see.
Sri Guru and his
Well,
grace,
Sri Guru and His Grace deals directly with these topics of what is, according to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, you know, who is our Guru, who is Diksha Guru, who is Shiksha Guru, and how the whole system works as we've received it from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That's outlined there in the compilation, but that was put together by Sudhir Krishna Maharaj, Sudhir Goswami Maharaj, sorry.
I think in that book, there's several of our godbrothers having conversations with Srila Sridhar Maharaj.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, you let me know if
There's some GBC discussion also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, sounds good, Prabhu.
Yeah, because I noticed it's 4 minutes before Gayatri time, which is perfect timing to end our discussion.
Is it really?
For me here in New York City time.
Oh, it's noon. Okay, right.
Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what? We've gone a little under 3 hours or something. Not finishing that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'd like to actually kind of finish up my my life experience also next time, perhaps.
Yeah.
No, just it won't take very long.
That's
but
okay.
just to talk about what I've done subsequent to taking shelter of Srila Sridhar Maharaj.
That sounds great.
What kind of service I did as a grihasta, and you know, a bit of the time in Badger, a bit of after in Badger, then going to London and going through university and stuff like that. How I studied at university. I studied in a different mood than academic. I tried to see it in terms of Krishna consciousness. The first came Krishna consciousness, second came academics.
Right.
You know, and so
that's very cool. Okay, so you just let me know whenever you have the time, and we'll
I'll write you on Messenger. Probably later in the week, next week sometime would be cool.
Thank you so much for your association. You really put me in the mood to chant the Gayatri mantra.
Yeah, I'll do that myself in 2 hours.
Okay.
I get up in the morning and I do my puja in the room, offering to all my pictures, and then I say my Gayatri. But I get up at 3, so I say Gayatri at about 4.
Oh,
but
wow.
You know, yeah, it's just the schedule that I want.
It's supposed to be, is it like, as I'm thinking here,
sunrise, noon, sunset, right?
Right. Sunrise here is can be pretty late, 6:30, 7 in the morning. It's dark here. Yeah.
I've always understood it that you do as best you can according to necessity, right? But you do your best to get 3 in. If you can't get in 3, at least get in 2. That's what I
Here's a
do.
question for you. So sometimes I've missed the Gayatri and it's like an hour and a half later. Is it still good to do it or no, you blew it?
No, I do it.
Okay.
I mean, why not?
Just to keep
It's not. There's the recommended times, but they're recommended. They're not like carved in stone or something,
Okay, I got it.
as far as I
Yeah,
understand.
thank you. My
Oh,
obeisance to Maharaj.
my Dandavat, my
Vanchakalpatarubhascha.
obeisance. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Srila
Jai Srila Guru
Prabhupada,
Maharaj. Srila Govinda Maharaj. Jai.
King
Ki Jai.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Talk to
Prabhu
you soon.
Dandavat.
Jai Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Jai. Jai Guru Dev.